You know, if you want to talk about penises and hardware manufacturers, Max Scoville laid out a pretty elegant
I wrote
metaphor.
a pretty good bit about wiener penises. There's something extremely cool about seeing guns and blood and profanity in something that you typically associate with being a kid's thing, and that's probably what got me into video games. One of the first being Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah. I mean, I even remember the Wolfenstein that you played on an Apple computer.
The 2D one?
Yeah. And still to this day, I have no idea how you played that. Like, how we all knew what to do with that game. I don't know if it's just youthful instinctiveness. But anyway, so we're seeing a new Wolfenstein from Bethesda now.
Yep.
It's Machine Games is the developer.
On top of that, we've also got a new Shadow Warrior by way of Devolver Digital, and a redo of Rise of the Triad from Interceptor Games.
And that's kind of related to Wolfenstein.
Yeah, and presumably there's a Doom 4 on the horizon.
At a certain point, they just need to make like a Blake Stone reboot. Just go every single shooter from that era, every single Doom clone-y, sort of vaguely first person, but looks like it's made out of sprites.
Right.
Just remake all of them.
Maybe bring back Bad Dudes.
Oh, Bad Dudes.
Yeah,
Bad Dudes.
the president's being kidnapped by
Right,
ninjas.
Right.
Well, I mean, the thing is interesting is we both are coming from this. I mean, you're much older than me.
Yes, you're right.
Yes.
I have very clear memories of the 1980s.
The things that you were experiencing firsthand from the 80s is stuff that I grew up with, reruns on afternoon cable TV, or hand-me-down comic books, or hand-me-down action figures. That was the stuff that you experienced firsthand. You grew up on the internet.
Yeah, I was born in 1990.
Right.
I've never experienced a single 80.
You are not an 80 at all. You are, thumbs up if you're a
amazing.
90s kid. Yeah.
Like this status.
Yeah,
Nickelodeon.
Yeah. I don't
So
know.
like stuff that I looked at ironically was probably really cool to you.
Yeah.
That's just amazing what we're straddling here generationally. But the 80s games, I'm curious, Nick, how do you regard a game from the 80s? And like, can you even identify one that you played recently?
Sort of. I mean, maybe not quite the like 80s games, like 80s arcade games, like those are sort of exempt from like the sort of the console thing. Like I think my parents kind of kept me in the dark and raised me on like the Sega Genesis, even though if you do the math and look at the timeline, there's no reason I should have been playing Genesis games in like 2001. So that's probably a shrewd financial decision. But when it comes to like 80s arcade games and stuff, I don't know. I still grew up on sprite-based games. I still grew up on like 2D, sort of very arcade-influenced stuff. So they never felt totally foreign to me.
I mean, but like the vernacular of them. I mean, I think that's what I've been thinking about this a lot. That if you look at
less the technology, more the kind of stylistic stuff.
But the action platformers of the 80s, of which there were many.
Right.
Was there really that much difference between them, or was the most important thing what the skin was that you laid on top of it, be it Star Wars or Mario or Contra or something like that?
Yeah, pretty much. It was just a different flavor.
Yeah, I think I've been going over my head, like, what was so intriguing about all these games? I mean, I think there's just a fascination with cause and effect. And just the idea of hitting a button, and somehow that's represented on screen, is just, there's something really pleasing to the human brain. That's why we put up with playing so many games that were fundamentally very similar.
That was still novel at the time. Like, that was still a recent-ish development in human history, right? Like, as soon as you start throwing licenses on that, then that's like you're getting hit with two really incredible gimmicks: A, interactivity; B, it's a Star Wars thing, and I like Star Wars.
I mean, I think licensed games, we see this happening now. It takes longer to develop a game, and I think we're going to see licensed games getting worse and worse because the process with digital video of a movie being made is like it's faster turnaround, whereas a game it takes like 5 years to develop a good game for like next gen systems. Whereas back then it was like, take Mario and put Stallone on the box and you've got like a video game for Tango and Cash or whatever,
But so I think it's interesting that we are seeing once again kind of these games coming back, like Wolfenstein. What is essential for Wolfenstein that you call a game Wolfenstein? I mean, I guess Nazis. And then even like the Doom problem when Doom 3 came out. I mean, they were such crude games that no one really thought about story and stuff like that. And then now you have to kind of integrate all this modern kind of concepts into something that may not have the framework to support it.
Totally. Like Doom 3 is such a weird thing because they surgically took individual elements of Doom, like very, very specific ones, but I guess that what they felt was they couldn't make a Doom game that felt like a Doom game in the year that Doom 3 came out, you know what I mean? Like trying to modernize, I mean, I guess Painkiller did pretty much exactly that. But Doom 3 is just such a weird thing. It's just a weird vibe. It doesn't feel like Doom, I guess.
I remember thinking it pretty much, like I liked it. I didn't play it extensively, but I liked that it was kind of taking the thing that was familiar. Like, what if you were in space and then hell happened? And you're like, okay, what if Satan was in space? I'm with you. What if I was a space marine? And, all right. And I feel like the stuff that they were really innovating there was the stuff I didn't care about. It's like, I just want to shoot Satan in space.
Well, that's the thing. It's like in the original Doom, it's like evil in space. That's all you needed for a game.
Right.
And then with Doom 3, it's like, you have to explain the evil in space. And that's where things start to get a little bit like, harebrained. And this brings me to Blood Dragon, which I think is just kind of, it really recaptured something that I don't think I realized I missed, which was, let's just find the flimsiest excuse to hinge a story on and how that informed the gameplay, and it just makes for such an entertaining experience.
Let's throw this out here right now. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is a better Duke Nukem Forever than Duke Nukem Forever was.
Believe that.
I think that's an excellent way of putting it.
Yes, it understood that action movie heroes are not to be actually idolized. You're supposed to sort of laugh at them. Mm-hmm. It wasn't trying to be like, oh, people actually like this character. We better make him believable and substantial. It's like, no. You were going to press down on one of the sticks and you'll give him the middle finger. Like, you could do that.
It's interesting, though, the idea of making a game with a flimsy premise on purpose. And I think that's a dangerous game to play because you could end up with a snakes on a plane situation where it's too jokey and too wink and naughty. But by all accounts, Blood Dragon is tone perfect. Like, when I saw that game, actually, my first thought wasn't,
But it is a short game, and I think that might be working to its advantage.
That might be a factor.
If they did that joke for the length of, like, Far Cry 3 proper,
right,
I think that it would start to grade, it would start to wear a little bit thin, and there's no way to keep it fresh, because it is, I won't say it's one note, but there's a very loud note that probably is drowning out every other aspect of it.
It's holding a guitar chord,
Yeah.
I think that there's a couple things to say. One, brevity is the soul of wit. You cannot do a 40-hour joke. That does not work. You cannot play a video game for 20 hours or whatever and have it still be funny. I mean, maybe it can be funny, but if it's a kind of a one-time thing. Second, I think that a lot of humor is really just kind of being spontaneous, and just a lot of humor is accidental. And when you're making a game and you're QA testing it, and you are filing down all the sharp edges, like that is the opposite of comedy. That is trying to make something formulaic that is solid and works. Blood Dragon, I think, works because they took a very solid structure of Far Cry 3 and they just applied a coat of neon turquoise paint to it and added some swear words.
I think it also helps that it legitimately looks cool. Like, for all the irony and for all, like, the ribbing and all that, there's not a video game that looks the way Blood Dragon looks at all. There hasn't been. I don't think.
And it stands out for that. I also think that the comedy and the tone and the silliness in the look, it's not just so much it's there to entertain me, it affects how I play the game. I'm far more aggressive. I'm not taking how I'm playing it as seriously. And I think as a result, I'm kind of discovering mechanics that I didn't find in Far Cry 3 because I was playing it more cautiously and defensively. It's an interesting, I think, effect upon the player.
Well, you're role-playing a different character, right? Instead of role-playing like a dude who's been stranded on an island and is fighting for survival, you're role-playing a dude who has access to a middle finger button. And who's like throwing, what are the rocks replaced with in Blood Dragon?
Dice. D20s.
Yep.
Why?
Nerd.
It's a dumb, thoughtless, almost lazy joke, but that whole game is that, and it kind of works.
Yeah. I mean, is that if you're going to do dumb humor, you have to fully embrace it.
Commit.
It's stuff like that where it's like, all right, if there's a crazy person driving, I'll still get in the car. And let's see where we go with this.
I think what's really great about it is you aren't invested in the character. You aren't invested in the story. It's a completely casual experience, and that's actually really fun. Like, I mean, I've been playing, Spec Ops: The Line, and that's the exact opposite. Like, that has a good story. It's well written, but at the same time, I'm kind of taking it slow. Like, I'm kind of just like, okay. Or like, I'll come home and I'll be like, I don't want to play that because I've had a long day.
I had that exact experience with Spec Ops where if you come home from working for 8 hours, you can't sit down and relax with like a heady, very, very dark shooter.
No. Yeah, exactly.
War isn't the best way to calm down.
Totally.
I've found.
No, it took me forever to get through Metal Gear Solid 4 because there's so much story and so much, and it's also a stealth game, and you're planning your shit, and it's like, sometimes I just want to play a neon game where the lights and there's some blood and a noise, and then maybe music is playing.
See, and in that you explained everything about the 80s.
Yeah.
Gratification, here, now. There was no mulling about canon and stuff like that. We didn't have an internet. So we didn't have to get so obsessed about small things, and that's how we ended up with wonderful action movies starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. It didn't make any sense, but we went there for the bloodlust. Then we moved on to something else.
This is true.